Welcome to the 2023 DiLCo Lecture Series on Digital Language and Communication. I'm Yanis Androutsopoulos from the University of Hamburg, and I'm delighted to kick off the New Year's lecture series today. DiLCo is a 3-year scientific network on digital language variation in context, initiated in 2021. It is coordinated from Hamburg by my colleague, Heike Zinsmeister, and myself, and currently includes scholars from universities in the US, UK, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, and Denmark. DiLCo is generously supported by the University of Hamburg within the Universities of Excellence scheme, funded by the German federal government and the federal states. DiLCo aims to stimulate scientific exchange between various approaches to digital language and communication research within linguistics, and especially to bridge gaps between qualitative and quantitative research methods. We are organizing online and on-site activities such as conference panels, methods workshops, and this DiLCo Lecture Series. Our lectures showcase cutting-edge international research by senior and younger scholars who draw on key concepts in sociocultural linguistics to shed light on language variation and language change and interaction in digital communication. We are recording these lectures to build up a repository that is available open access from Hamburg University's video portal Lecture2Go. Each lecture is about 40 to 45 minutes, followed by discussion. Feel free to post any questions and comments into the chat during the lecture. I'm delighted to introduce as the first speaker in this year's lecture series, Wyke Stommel. Wyke is Associate Professor of Language and Communication at the Center for Language Studies at Radboud University Nijmegen in the Netherlands, and she's also affiliated with the Radboud Interdisciplinary Hub for Digitalization and Society. Wyke's research focuses on health interaction and digitally mediated interaction and the intersections between the two by using conversation analytic methods. Wyke's research looks at both written mediated interactions and video mediated interaction. Wyke Stommel is one of the initiators of a network called MOOD, Microanalysis of Online Data, that aims to develop conversation analysis as a method for the analysis of digital interaction, and also has an interest in ethical issues in this area. Her research has been published in a wide array of journals, including Research on Language and Social Interaction, Discourse Studies, Discourse, Context and Media, and others. And in 2021, Wyke co-edited the volume Analyzing Digital Interaction together with Joanne Meredith and David Giles, which consolidates a conversation analytic approach to digitally mediated interaction. In line with her double interest in health communication and digitally mediated interaction, Wyke Stommel will speak to us today about shared care through instant messaging updates in youth care. Thank you very much for being with us. The floor is now yours, Wyke.
Well, thank you very much for this kind introduction. Thank you very much explicitly also to Heike, both of you, for inviting me to speak in this lecture series. In fact, it happens to be the second time in a relatively short time frame that the University of Hamburg invites me for a presentation. It was about 1.5 years ago that I was invited by your colleague Gilberto Resche for a lecture in the Vortragsreihe called Digitales Forschen. And then I presented some work on video-mediated medical consultations. Now, as you were saying before, I will be talking about a different digital environment and focusing on predominantly written aspects of digital interaction. What I'm going to focus on is WhatsApp interactions in a specific type of foster care in the Netherlands. And I would like to mention first that I work on this project, still working on it, with 2 colleagues from Universities of Applied Sciences in Arnhem, Nijmegen, and in Ede. These are Guillaume Sliedrecht and Ellen Schep. And as you also already mentioned, this analysis is qualitative in nature. We will be looking at the details, not of single messages, but of stretches of text-based multimodal interaction, that have taken place in real life in a semi-professional, or you could say hybrid setting. I will present this analysis as a case in point of what one might want to call digital conversation analysis. Now, but what is this digital conversation analysis? It refers to digital interaction between humans, but it could also be humans and machines, bots, robots, virtual agents. And this means that it has a basis in conversation and conversation analysis. In fact, conversation can be seen as the primordial, and has been described as the primordial site of human sociality. And this is increasingly, as we all know, mediated by all kinds of digital tools and platforms. These are text-based or video-based or a mixture, and they facilitate spoken and or written and otherwise graphical interaction. They're used both for entertainment, for identity and relationship work, and for all kinds of professional and goal-oriented interaction. This includes infrastructures developed by the big tech companies, like Google, Microsoft, Apple, and it includes tools or applications like Google Hangout, Google Docs, FaceTime, Teams, but also the other environments like Snapchat, TikTok, Twitter, Zoom, simple email, texting through WhatsApp or Telegram, Twitter, Mastodon, all the other apps, also including platforms by insurance companies, Strava, Teamy, Wordfeud, basically any technology that enables some sort of social interaction. And it is the proliferation of these applications that is so overwhelming, and their life cycles that are so uncertain, which makes it hard for research to keep up with current developments, to examine specifically how these technologies impact human interaction as a bedrock of human sociality. So the question is where to focus on as a researcher interested in social interaction generally, and how to go about. In this lecture, I'll propose digital conversation analysis, or conversation analysis more generally, as a direction indicator for this type of research. Generally, researchers in the tradition of conversation analysis are interested in the empirical, sorry for the slide, for the empirical study of how interaction is organized. So which norms we orient to as interactants to achieve goals and to build and maintain relationships. This tells us something about human sociality, and especially about how language features therein. CA focuses on the reflexive dimension in social action, which means that actions produced with the help of language, but also nonverbal behavior, display some sort of an understanding or an analysis of a particular event, and at the same time, they move the event forward on the basis of that analysis. As Heritage put it once in one of his papers, the ship is being built while already being out on the sea. That's the metaphor he uses. In other words, CA examines how meaning is shaped by sequential context, how the production of a next action shows an understanding of the prior action. And this machinery, these procedures are normative. Participants display moral accountability for departures of this order, and they thereby maintain normativity. For a long time, CA focused on spoken interaction, face-to-face or on the phone, but this started to change roughly since the year 2000, when people like Sean Brintel and Joyce Lamerichs became interested in forms of digital interaction, namely in chat rooms and online support groups, for which they used concepts and principles of CA and discursive psychology. It was around this time, a bit later, and I was shocked realizing it's almost 18 years ago, that I encountered this then relatively new avenue of research, and I decided to write my PhD thesis about online interaction, discovering, first of all, that it appeared to play an essential part in people's lives, and thus in human sociality, one could argue. And second, that indeed participants seem to orient to and establish certain normative ways of interacting with text messages, forum posts, for example, with regard to how to introduce themselves and how to present their problem towards the group, the community. And the insights I gained from that early PhD research already raised my interest in the broader question of how interaction is interrelated with or affected by the communication technologies and environments we use. Conversation analysis was and still is a highly sophisticated approach to analyzing interaction in detail, and it was that kind of detail that I wanted to pursue. However, obviously, I encountered all kinds of challenges in applying CA to online data. It was at a conference in Loughborough in 2012 that I discovered I was not the only one struggling with these challenges. And with the colleagues I met there, we decided to set up this network that Jan has already mentioned, called MOOD, Microanalysis of Online Data. We met in a series of events, wrote a few, some well-cited papers, and a book, as you also introduced already, Analyzing Digital Interaction, which came out in 2021. In one of the papers, that was the one from 2015, I think, we used the term digital conversation analysis between quotation marks to highlight that what we strived for was the same rigor and in-depth analysis that is typical for CA research. And a few years later, we discovered that the term had been adopted by quite a few others, referring to a method of analysis. And in most cases, their studies were related to online written interaction. And this development evolved and culminating maybe in a request I received last year from a qualitative research journal to write a paper explaining the microanalytical approach of digital conversation analysis. And that's how science works. Apparently, a new concept seemed to be born. So one might then ask, what is this about, digital conversation analysis? How does it work? If we accept at all that it is a method as such, which I would doubt, but still, let's see if we can find some common issues and interests, which I think researchers engaging in such an endeavor should pay attention to. So the question is, what is it and how does it work? Of course, the analysis of WhatsApp interactions that I will present to you in a minute will explain and illustrate the method, if you could call it that. But these may be some general aspects. So first of all, like CA generally, digital CA assumes there is some kind of normative organization to be found in digital interaction, which warrants intersubjectivity between participants. This is the basis for observability of phenomena, both for co-participants and for researchers. Second, the interaction under examination is naturally occurring. That is, we are studying non-elicited data, so no researcher involved in principle. Then, like CA, I would say we examine digital mediated interaction in an empirical, microanalytical way, which also involves case-by-case analysis. So in principle, any case is interesting enough for a research study and for close examination. Another aspect I would propose is that we have to be aware of previous research and also basic CA research, even on spoken interaction, however, with sensitivity to the fact that digital phenomena may be incomparable to already identified structures in talk. Also, I would say that the analysis focuses on courses of action in local context, that is, on what is achieved by the participants there and then, again, with sensitivity to the specifics of this there and then. A further issue is that one could distinguish, and it's something I tend to do and will also show in the analysis of WhatsApp interactions, one could distinguish between institutional and ordinary digital interaction in the sense that these are participants' achievements rather than assumptions about context. And then as a last aspect, apart from linguistic and graphical aspects, punctuation marks, emoji, capitals, etc., many other resources like timing and also other technical features of any kind of environment are used, maybe resources in these courses of actions, and analyses should be sensitive to these types of multimodality as afforded by the environment, by the technology. Should also be attentive to participation frameworks and ways in which participants may engage in the interaction, in what way also. And these are all issues that cannot be resolved at the start of a study. They have to be tackled and analyzed for their relevance to the interaction along the way. Now let's turn to my example of a digital CA, the study of WhatsApp messaging in the specific setting of foster care. Okay. So foster care and family style group, or the specific setting I will be focusing on, is actually called family style group care. And this means that youngsters, children between 13 and 20 temporarily live in the family of a professional foster parent. These are trained professionals, not volunteers. While they live with the professional foster parents, they also regularly visit their birth parents. Typical for family style group care is that one of the parents is the professional, a youth worker, who is actually living with his or her own family, while the partner, who also lives at that home, often has a job elsewhere and is only available for the children when at home. Now, the relationship between birth parents and foster parents is a very complex and precarious one. It has been found that birth parents sometimes feel like they are failing as parents, and foster parents at the same time sometimes feel threatened by birth parents in their role as parents. So this is a very complex environment, and good supportive contact and collaboration between foster parents and birth parents is of great importance for the well-being of the child and also for the success of the outplacement. It has been found that problematic contact between birth parents and professional foster parents may in fact lead to outplacement or a breakdown of the placement, and thus has severe consequences for the child. Our analysis of WhatsApp communication in this particular setting of family style group care provides novel insight into the detailed workings of the relationship between professional foster parents and birth parents, and into how the communication technology of text messaging features in this complex relationship. Our data consists of instant messaging conversations between 11 pairs of foster parents and birth parents during a period of 2 months. The participants were recruited as part of a research project on cooperation between foster parents and birth parents in a project of the University of Applied Sciences, Ada. All participants were fully informed, of course, about the study, and they gave their consent preceding the data collection period. Also, and I didn't put that on the slide, but we also collected their telephone calls. So in future work, we are looking forward to relating telephone calls and WhatsApp messaging. In some of the interactions we collected, there's only one birth parent involved. In others, both birth mother and birth father participate. Most foster parents and birth parent diets did not have daily contact. The time between their exchanges varied between a few hours and a few weeks. As said, our data consists of the chat logs as they were produced by the chat export functionality of WhatsApp. And the 2-month chat logs consist of 30 to 228 posts per diet or triad. The chats mainly include text messages, but also images and a few videos. Specifically, the data involves 11 adolescents, 3 boys, 8 girls, between 13 and 20 years old, and the length of the in-family placement varied between 9 months and 126 months, so was on average 49 months. Okay, so what did we look at in these WhatsApp data? After an exploration of the data, we decided to focus on one particular recurrent type of activity, and that was asking for and giving some kind of news on the child or the children. These could be messages like David just had his first driving lesson, or also questions eliciting news like how did it go yesterday? This activity reminded us of research on news delivery sequences in talk, in conversation. We came to call this activity that we identified or first explored generally updating, keeping each other posted on the child. And we were interested in this phenomenon basically for two reasons. First of all, these updates seem to fulfill a role in the shared but also regularly transferred responsibility for the child, which is a precarious issue in the relationship, the responsibility. And it also seemed to involve particular affordances of the technology of WhatsApp, such as sharing images. Our analysis then focuses on how updates are organized sequentially, elicited or self-initiated, and how they are designed multimodally, also including photos and emoji, etc. But also on what they achieve interactionally, so how they function in this setting, specific setting in a way. So by studying updates, we aim to gain new detailed insights in this semi-institutional relationship between birth parents and foster parents. And before I throw examples at you and discuss them, I'll briefly sketch the previous or some of the notions from previous work on news delivery and interaction, and generally on social interaction and text messaging. So what do we know about news? In fact, it was Maynard, or mainly Maynard, who wrote about news delivery sequences and kind of dissected them in their sequential structure. So the basic sequence of news delivery consists of some announcement of news, the actual information that is the news, then from the recipient a news receipt, where recipients have, as Terasaki put it, reception procedures which provide for showing that the news is not news for them, is or is not news for them, and that it has been received and appreciated. Following the news receipt, the sequence may then be expanded with further talk about the news. As I already indicated, news may also be elicited not only in WhatsApp, in WhatsApp messaging, but also in talk. And these elicitations may be either open or itemized news inquiries. And the itemized ones would be something like, how did it go yesterday? Already building upon shared knowledge of the fact that something happened yesterday. Ashby and Tenna in 2008 already identified announcements of news in text messages, and they pointed at their recipient designed structure in terms of calling upon shared knowledge. So an initial message could be food ordered, clearly building on the shared understanding of that there was some relevance of ordering food. And they also pointed at the conditional relevance of response, making the response relevant by providing such news. So this is the general structure, and it has already been identified in a digitally mediated interaction. So we are basically continuing this line of research in our data. Social interaction and WhatsApp, there's obviously a lot of work already in this area, and I'm sure you're all maybe even much more familiar with the work wildly in linguistics and discourse analysis. But a few studies and issues that were relevant for our analysis are these. Analyses of specific emoji. So this is, for example, the work by Al-Rushdie and San Pietro, specifically in text messaging between family and friends. Also relevant were studies on vocalizations in text messaging, something like haha, laughter, and displays of consideration. And then, of course, there are also a few studies on more sequential structures and also repair, obviously, and Joe Meredith was already mentioned before, into text messaging specifically. These studies of social interaction in various types of messaging, you could say, or written messaging, inform our analysis of the construction and maintenance of social relations between foster parents and birth parents. So what did we find? Well, I exploring the data, we encountered these, but obviously we went through the whole data set to go by cases and develop an understanding of whether it was a case of updating or not. And we found 54 cases with boundary cases included, of course, of which in 14 cases the update seemed elicited by the other party, so to say, and the distribution among birth parents and foster parents was almost equal. The numbers don't say that much. Updates were also self-initiated actually in most cases, so 40 of our cases were just updates provided by either the foster parents or the birth parents, and then what followed was some kind of receipt and an optional elaboration. We also find, and that may be important to note here, is that updating was a distinctive activity. It was actually a reason for texting to update the other party of something, and the interaction would then also be closed as the news was provided and received. So throughout these 54 updates, we found various functions, you could say. And this is roughly the list that, not an exclusive list, there may be more functions to be identified, but at least these seem the things that play into updating or functions of updating. First of all, sharing responsibility for the child. Second, providing real-time access or quasi-primary access to the child's experience. And third, displaying accountability for care for the child. Okay, let's move on, if I have everything here. I think so. Okay, we'll move on to the examples. This is a very simple update. This is a self-initiated update posted by the birth mother. I'll just read the English translation. Martin has arrived safely. So this is a report of the birth mother of receiving Martin at her home. As I said, children often visit their birth parents during weekends or also during the week. So there is a lot of interaction about the transfer of the child of one home to the other home. In this post, as I said, the birth mother informs the foster parents that the youngster has arrived safely, and the packaging of the update of the birth mother is to the point. There's no greeting, there's no preface, but does mark the positive arrival, the goed safely, which implies that the traveling went smoothly. So these children travel independently. And with the update, the birth mother then presents herself as now the responsible person for the child, and also taking responsibility for the child by informing the birth parents, and thus also taking responsibility for the relationship or the alignment of the responsibility between the parties. The announcement itself also implies that the birth mother, as I said, now takes responsibility for the youngster. So it is recipient designed, it presupposes the shared knowledge that Martin was underway, and it displays responsibility both towards the foster parents and for the child. Now, how does the foster parent respond? Foster parent goes, "Thanks, have fun together." So the foster parent receives the news with an informal and colloquial designed response, "Thanks," and thereby appreciates the update as news. And she extends this news receipt with a wish, "Have fun together," towards the birth mother, which highlights a specific aspect of the youngster's visit, namely fun. Hence, the foster parent shows that having fun or having a good time is relevant as an aspect of their relationship. It's a conventional way of closing a sequence, and with this elaboration, very limited elaboration, but still the sequence is closed and they have no further contact at that point in time. Okay, another example of an update in the context of the transfer of the child. The birth father goes, "Hi Anton, did Job arrive in good order? Greetings, Jan." Here we can see the elicitation of an update by the birth father, which is also displaying responsibility for, "I want to know whether my child arrived on your side well." And this is in fact a very formal way of phrasing it, the greeting, and both greeting Anton and closing greetings of Jan are a more formal way of doing it. But his interest is clearly in Job and the responsibility for his arrival. For the birth, sorry, these abbreviations are terrible. The foster parent receiving Job in a way is confirming, yes, made it to piano lesson, looks healthy. By going, ja, hoor, and hoor is an untranslatable Dutch discourse marker, you could say. He's subtly warding off the relevance of asking. So it wasn't, strictly speaking, necessary to ask about Job's arrival. It was assumed that he would arrive safely. However, what he's also doing in his elaboration is orienting to the timeliness of the arrival. So apparently he arrived on time, and the looks healthy positively evaluates the child, which is also interesting, and indirectly, in fact, compliments the birth father for how he cared for his child. So what can we say about transfer updates? That birth parents display responsibility in caring for their children and towards the foster parents in keeping them posted and eliciting an update. While the foster parents appreciate updates, they highlight positive aspects like fun and looks healthy and that sort of thing, indirectly complimenting birth parents. So this is very subtle work in maybe apparently very, well, how should I put this? Very lean and not very elaborate news sequences or update sequences. These are also questions like, no, never mind. So I'll continue with the next type of update or next function. This is the function with updates as a way of giving access to children's experiences. Actually, we have an image here, which is a stock photo, so these are not the real children, but just to give you an idea. So foster parents are sending this image of sleeping girls in the car, and accompanying text is tired but satisfied after a day at the amusement park. Zzz, so the vocalization of sleeping. And then what follows is another photo of the girls at the entrance of the amusement park. So the foster parents initiate the interaction with these photos of the children. And given the timing of the posts between 5 and 6 p.m., the first image of the sleeping girls seems to be a real-time update, providing quasi-primary access to that very moment. The second one is presumably taken at the beginning of the day at the entrance of the amusement park upon their arrival. The vocalization of the snoring noise, the zzz, stages the children in an agent position, both in the image and in the description. The foster parent positions herself as a reporter or the deliverer of real-time, very recent news. And thereby, the foster parent provides access to the children's experience, leaving out their own role or participation in the experience. So the foster parents are reporter, children staged in agent position. And this, as I said, provides access to the children's experience as if the birth parents were there. In response, both father and mother both respond. They appreciate the photos they received. In fact, the birth parents' participation, so the receipt of these photos, like nice pictures, looks like they had fun and good to see that they had fun, interactively construct them as involved and empathic parents. They respond to every update about their child and align with the update's balance, the positive aspect of that. They both show their appreciation, and they use both verbal and visual emoji ways of constructing that positive receipt, like nice pictures and the thumbs up emoji. Also, they refer to the girls aligning with the foster parents' positioning of the children as agents and make explicit that they only have indirect access to the event using the evidentials, looks like and good to see. So they position themselves as spectators, but as spectators that are able to catch a glimpse of the girl's day out. So interesting is that they both respond, that they use various affordances of WhatsApp, so the thumbs up emoji, and they appreciate the images as an update, commenting on the value of the pictures, nice pictures, and they use evidentials, positioning themselves as spectators. Now, as a further response, so the elaboration continues, you could say, the foster parent again focuses on the children using they rather than we, and thus excludes herself as a participant in the event. She goes, yes, they really had fun with each other, and with each other also nice, so they also had a good time together. This avoids an orientation to the foster parent as having primary access, which would be conveyed with a construction like we really had fun. So downplaying the fact that birth parents did not have this, have primary access basically. And you could argue that this displays sensitivity to the relationship with the birth parents, they rather than we. Another example of an image as an update. This is also a stock photo, not a real one, but still anonymized. This is the message. It's an image by a foster parent, another example. In fact, this image is showing the positive results of a swimming test that the child just completed. The update consists of an image without any accompanying text and is an example, you could say, of a social practice in which participants use images to elicit interaction and or as evidence that something has happened, as Talbot and Vis have pointed out. Without any verbal announcement, the foster parent provides the birth mother, in this case, quasi-immediate and quasi-primary access to an event that is important for the child. How does the mother respond then? She goes, ah, super duper cool, congratulations, honey. First of all, we should note the timing of the response. 1 minute after the image was received. And this works up the impression that the birth mother was waiting for the news and thus suggests direct engagement with the event. The birth mother displays involvement and affection as a mother in this event that she is not a part of. Her next post is in fact directed at her daughter, thus treating the foster parent merely as a messenger. She's congratulating her child straightforwardly, addressing the daughter. So again, and similar to the previous case, you could say the birth mother is treating the foster parent as an intermediator, which is then also this role adopted by the foster parent. The foster parent in a further response goes, thank you, she says, with emoji. So in fact, she's thanking on behalf of the daughter and thus aligns with her role as intermediary between the mother and the daughter. So the image as an update provides the birth mother quasi-real-time access to an important event, and by responding within a minute after receiving the message, she constructs her involvement as if she had been waiting. This involvement is then also enacted in the further response by the foster parent. And so update sequences can be used for being intimate or close with the own child, despite the physical and experiential distance between the two. Now, to summarize, and I actually, maybe not necessary, but still, the use of images provides quasi-direct visual access, and that's one function of WhatsApp updates. And foster parents position themselves as and are treated as intermediary between birth parents and children. It enables also this way of dealing with images which is particular to the affordances of WhatsApp, to overcome the physical distance and maybe also the birth parents sometimes feeling of failure or shortcoming by involving them in the event. And it also allows, in response, the birth parents to display parental involvement. Now let's move on to the third version of, or the first function, I should say, of updates. These are updates as a display of accountability in the context of a prior problem. I'll read it because it's a bit longer. The birth mother goes, Mariska, just a short update from my side. Haha. Yesterday was an exhausting day, some struggles and some patterns that were held onto, but it went well for 90%. Both went to sleep delightfully. I'll keep you posted every now and then. Big hug. This Mariska, just a short update from my side, haha, is a preface which presents the updating as a recognizable activity and as a relevant thing to do. Notable is that this is a multi-component update. It consists of various pieces of news or reporting, you could say. The preface itself is notable as the mitigation with short update and just a short update from my side. Haha, as well, the laughter tokens, seem to downplay or mitigate the problem status of the account. And the problem which this account relates to seems to be that the birth mother had to manage something difficult with the children. The report itself consists of negative aspects contrasted with positive aspects and concluded with the positive ones. So 90% went well and both went to sleep delightfully. So the positive outcome presents the mother as a good parent, and the update displays accountability for her parenting, caring towards the foster parents. The closing promise to keep the foster parent posted every now and then also suggests that the current circumstances engender the normative expectation to send updates and to keep the other party posted. This is constructed as a positive commitment underscored by the closing hug. So there is, in this case, and that's also one of the reasons that we call these sequences update sequences, the fact that it's a participant term, the update from the side of the birth mother. So there is some orientation to an explicit norm to update as a relevant activity for the relationship. So to summarize all of it and also discuss it, I think, and I hope I have shown you that birth parents orient to a transfer of responsibility for the child, specifically when it's moving between birth parents and foster parents, and thus responsibility for the relationship with the foster parents. And the birth parents also display accountability for care by updating on a prior problem. Basically, this is a way also of presenting themselves as good parents or being a good parent in the parallel to sex work of being normal. Foster parents, from the other side, you could say, send update images to birth parents. This is something, maybe we have one case of the reverse, but it's at least seems to be less common. And these images provide access to the children's experiences, where foster parents self-position as intermediary and BP, the birth parents respond, also treating the foster parents as intermediary, and also displaying involvement in terms of timing, immediate response, addressing the child, and positively evaluating the experiences. The foster parents orient to positive aspects in their update responses. They emphasize BP's fun with their children. Oh, in fact, this is something I didn't mention in the previous case, but was also there. Maybe I can go back to show that quickly. Didn't pay much attention to the response, or not at all actually, but here in the lengthy update, the foster parent also responded with very positive, good to hear and enjoy together. No further details into the news itself and the things that didn't go well. The response is tilted toward a positive outcome and highlighting the fun that birth mother and children should have probably at the beach. So foster parent does not confirm any updating expectation, but encourages the birth mother to positively engage with her children. Okay, now back to my conclusions. So as I said, foster parents emphasize BP's fun with their children, and they also indirectly compliment birth parents for how they care for their children. Now, you could say that our analysis makes tangible how foster parents and birth parents balance their relationship and the goal of co-parenting together. WhatsApp updating and its affordances are, in fact, a method to share care, as Van der Koot and Noordegraaf put it. of sharing care in practice. We also see a potential asymmetry between birth parents and foster parents, where birth parents work to display responsibility, while foster parents merely empower birth parents and grant the birth parents' role as parents. Also, on another level, we may conclude that text messaging may fulfill an important role in complex, precarious, and hybrid settings, like foster care or this particular youth care setting. And I would like to close by saying that this is how the close inspection of stretches of digital interaction, multimodally, may gain new insights in how participants get things done in digital interaction. It puts flesh on the bones of platitudes like communication matters or communication is crucial, and it helps to understand the complexity of relationships, in this case, a particular relationship in care work. And yeah, that's it for now. If you have any questions, I'm happy to discuss them with you. And these are a few of the references that I didn't make. You mentioned all of them, but they may be of relevance. Thank you. Shall I stop sharing?
Yes, just a second. We need to get back to discussion mode. Thank you very much. Yes, you can stop sharing if you want, so that we can go back to discussion mode. Thank you very much for this illuminating and very well organized talk, Wyke. And we have a good time, more than 10 minutes for discussion. I already have one. If I may read that out, you can also see that in the chat line by Guimei Gan. Let's see. The question is around, I'm gonna voice it, but then you can see it for yourselves in the chat line. It's about the analysis of updates as access, where the foster parents send photos of sleeping girls in the car and photos of girls at the entrance of the amusement park. Can you see this, Wyke? Yes?
I saw it, yeah, I see it. It is possible we do not have enough background information, timing of images, yes. Well, in this particular case, we didn't ask the participants, although we could have because we know who they are. But we concluded this on the basis of the time that the messages arrived and the time stamp that is in our chat logs. So on the basis of the time, and I don't know if I can look it up. In this particular case, so the photo of the sleeping girls was sent at 5:24 in the afternoon. So this is a typical time to return from a day out, and so that's the basis of our analysis, the timing. Yeah, not any external information.
Thank you for this. I'm taking questions and raised hands as they come, and I have one by Heike Zinsmeister.
Thank you, Wyke, for the presentation. It's clear that you do a qualitative analysis, but in the beginning you mentioned also the amount of messages that you have, and so I was wondering, do you also do you don't do a quantitative analysis, that's clear, but do you also relate the findings that you have based on individual messages? Is that like grounded in the 2000 messages that you have in all? So how does all the data relate to your findings? This is one question. And the other question is, you mentioned that you also collected telephone data. And so I'm wondering, what do you expect to be the outcome of relating the telephone data, which is another multi-modal dimension to add to this analysis, which is great to have this data.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Both very interesting questions. Well, to the first question, I think in doing analysis on digital data, I think we often have the problem that we have too much data, because I mean, it's relatively, I mean, compared to making recordings somewhere on site, it's relatively easy. Also for participants to download their histories and just email them, for example. So the size of our data set, around 2,000 messages, is kind of overwhelming in a way, because it gives us some kind of indication of what they do in WhatsApp, but it's very hard to say anything about the distribution of these activities, and also because it's not self-evident what they're doing there. So it took us quite some time to decide that we focus on this news sharing. This is not, although I do think it's a distinctive activity, it can also be combined with all kinds of other stuff that people do using WhatsApp. And it's sometimes hard to make sense of what they're doing. So there's, apart from updating, also other identifiable activities, such as discussing who is going to buy what, those kinds of discussions. These are also aspects of co-parenting, like the child needs a new trousers or whatever, and who's going to buy that? Oh no, I already bought that. Oh, okay. But there's also at least some of the pairs seem to be well acquainted, and they also do more friends talk in terms of oh, we have a new cat. Well, it's totally irrelevant to the child, or at least observably irrelevant to the child. So yeah, it's hard to say how representative what we find in update sequences is for the wider WhatsApp messaging between these parties. And I also find it difficult to define where a sequence, an update sequence ends, and how many posts it then consists. Should we, you know, the lengthy elaborations that go about, you know, something completely different, should we include them in the update sequence? I don't know. That was beyond our interest, I would say. So yeah, it's hard to say how many posts of these 2,000 are covered by our analysis of updates. I basically can't tell you. And then the other question about the telephone calls. Well, there are also, I mean, plenty of things to look at in these telephone calls. But what we are now looking at is particularly the transfer or the connection, you could say, between messaging and then calling. So, for example, they arrange a date to make a phone call to talk about something, either a problem or just a casual how are you, how are things going, and how they then make some kind of appointment for a phone call, how they then call, which may also fail because, okay, they agreed to call at 3 o'clock, but then the other person is occupied and can't take the phone, and there's issues who's calling whom, and also in terms of what it costs to make a phone call, in contrast to using WhatsApp messaging. So this, what have been called interconnected sequences is probably going to be the focus of our next analysis.
Thank you.
I have a good question in the chat line by Iman Bufaden, who asks, how do you see the impacts of your research in the public and community level? Do you, for instance, develop a framework to be used for training birth parents and foster parents for better relationship experience?
Yes, definitely. So I must admit that that's not my contribution to this research, because it is merely Ellen Schep, who works at the University of Applied Sciences in Ede, where these data were also collected. They have a lectorate, I don't know how to say that in English, but on social work, and this is one of the their issues of interest, and they do training for professional foster parents, and they also participate in meetings where birth parents are present, etc. So they're very much involved. We haven't developed a very a focused training on the use of WhatsApp or something like that, but our insights are definitely transferred to that area where they work closely with the people it involves.
Great, thank you for this. Do I see any other hands? Karin Birkner. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much, Wyke. After such a long time, seeing you again is very nice. So I was just would like to comment on some things that crossed my mind. On one hand, I find it very stimulating to see an investigation on WhatsApp, which is not only about, I don't know, like teenage talk or something, but where you can really see how institutionally based tasks are elaborated. And I think that's very important because maybe less in Germany, but in other countries, I know that WhatsApp is used a lot for institutional tasks. So that's very interesting. And on the other hand, I find it also very intriguing to see what you found out. You know, like it seems that the less difficult things are shared. I'm not always sure if I would call them news. Maybe it's more updates, as you call them. So because news is or whatever is a news. So, but it's updates, and this whole reaction to these updates seems to be very equal in a way, similar. You know, it's patterns. Like we like to find them if we do CA. So I think this digital CA is very promising. And a third remark is to Heike Zinsmeister in a way, because it's about the quantification. CA does not quantify in the terms like normally in social sciences and count and do percentages and stuff, but it looks for recurrences, it looks for patterns. So what you find there are these patterns, and they are based on, I mean, there's a way of some sort of indirect quantification. It's not, it could be single cases, we could work on single cases, but as far as I understood what you presented, it's a recurrent pattern. So there's some sort of argument on quantification in a way, you know, because it's not just one case, but it's something, it's a recurrent practice, which is shown by the frequency of its use. So thank you a lot.
Yeah, well, these are all very kind words, and I'm happy that it was also by others in the chat received as as an illustrative case for how one could go about doing these kinds of analyses, because I know it's very hard, and I'm also actually surprised that in Germany WhatsApp or some kind of other environment is used less. I've also worked on Tinder chats, for example, and I know that in Germany Tinder is also relatively well known and used. So I would say the same kinds of analysis one could do for Tinder, and one could do for any kind of environment. I think as long as one has, I think that's maybe a precondition. You need a few more cases than just one, because not so much literature to build on yet, and it's still in a way in its infancy, and also struggling with the problem of the overwhelming variety of digital communication technologies that we have. Always makes it hard to generalize from a particular case, and this is obviously much easier for ordinary interaction.
Thank you, Wyke. That sounds like a very good closing word. I'm looking into the audience to see whether we have any more raised hands. So if you want to ask something else, well, you have Thanksgivings going in the chat line. I don't see any imminent questions. So let's close it at that. Let's say thank you very much for this indeed very nice illustration of digital conversation analysis. And we at DiLCo look forward to having you at the next talk by Joseph Park from the National University of Singapore. I think it's the 24th of February?
23rd.
The 23rd of February, and it's at 11 a.m. due to the time zone difference. But again, on a Thursday in 4 weeks, 11 a.m. That will be the next DiLCo talk. Thank you so much for today, and bye-bye.